Tonight's show is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. You could have been anywhere. You chose to be here. We're happy that you did. And we got a lot to talk about. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. It's been almost 2 weeks since we've seen each other. Last time I was with you, we were talking about the fact that it was confirmed that Spencer Strider would not be around for the 2024 season. Of course, that was a big hit, but since then, what a tear the Braves have been on. And since that, I believe they are 9-2. And again, what a run it's been. We talked about where the Braves would go after Spencer Strider was declared that he would be out for the season. And ironically, that was amidst a series against Miami too. The Braves just got done sweeping the Marlins this week. And I got to say, they're 9-2 since we last saw each other. That is without, in large part, Ozzy Albies. That is without Sean Murphy and without Spencer Strider. They've been able to do a lot of things without a lot of key players. And that just goes to show you the depth. We're going to talk about the depth in just a minute, but I really wanted to focus first on the pitching because this has been quite surprising. Reynaldo Lopez continues to surprise a lot of people, rightfully so. He's had 4 starts, all of which were 6 innings or more. He's 2-0 so far on the season. He's got a sub-1 ERA at .72, and he's 24 strikeouts in 25 innings pitched. So you got to love that. Of the 4 starts, the Braves have only lost 1 that Lopez has pitched. He was not named the losing pitcher. Only 2 earned runs through 4 starts. Only 2 earned runs through 25 innings as well. He's faced these teams: the White Sox, the Mets, the Astros, and the Marlins. So if I have a concern, it would be this. It would be that he's had 4 solid appearances, but I still don't feel secure with him on the mound. And what I mean by that, it's nothing to do with Reynaldo Lopez. It's everything to do with who he's faced. So I mentioned it. The White Sox, one of the worst teams in baseball. The Marlins, one of the worst teams in baseball. The Mets, they're a division rival, but we'll see how they pan out at the end of the year. They've been okay lately. And he did all right against them. The Astros, who are playing the worst baseball they've played in probably the last decade. So, again, it's just not a ton of stiff competition. And that said, he's done well through it. But I need to see more stiff competition. And it's not just Reynaldo Lopez. I need to see the entire back end of the rotation against tougher competition, right? I need to see Bryce Elder against some tougher competition. But what an appearance he had the other night against the Marlins. And I really think that was by design. When it was first announced that Alan Winans was getting the call up over Bryce Elder, and then it was announced that it was Darius Vines, I had a sneaky suspicion that they were going to say Bryce Elder, they were going to save his debut for a team that he'd be comfortable against, and he has a lot of experience against the Marlins. If you remember over the previous years where he wasn't a fixture on the roster, he was called up a few times in a spot start to face Miami. And it's a team that, frankly, beyond the fact that they're not very good this year, it's a team that he's familiar with. It's a team that doesn't have a ton of pop. We saw Sanchez get a hold of one yesterday on Reynaldo, but all in all, it doesn't have a ton of pop, and Bryce Elder could be successful. We saw that. But that said, I'm curious to see what's going to happen once the Braves do face some tougher competition and, frankly, some tougher offenses, because we can sit here and debate pitching staffs all day. No one can catch up to what the Braves are offensively based on what we saw last year, based on what we're even seeing some of this year. That said, we're about to get some of that tougher competition. You look ahead, you got a 3-game set with the Guardians, who are in first place. You have a 3-game set with the Mariners, who are in first place of their division. And then you have a 3-game set against the Dodgers, who are not only one of our biggest postseason rivals, but also are in first place of the NL West. So we're about to know really quickly just how good the Braves are. And I'm excited about it. You should be excited about it. I think this Braves team has every potential to be really good this year. I mean, why wouldn't they, right? You look at last year, you look at all the offensive records they put up, And, I know we've taken a hit right now with Strider. I will say that Max Fried's 92 pitch appearance the other day did give me a lot more of a secure feeling with him, because his first few appearances weren't of the nature that we are familiar with Max Fried, but he seems to be at least rolling back where he's supposed to be. And look, I know it's the Marlins, right? But if you're going to give credit to Bryce Elder, if you're going to give credit to Ronaldo Lopez, you got to give credit to your ace, and that's Max Fried right now. I think he's back. I think he's going to be back to where he needs to be. And he may not have another game with 92 pitches thrown and a shutout, a complete game shutout. In this day and age, it's a lot to ask to get a complete game shutout. But I think he's going to be a lot more of a competitive pitcher. I think the next time he faces Philadelphia, he'll be a much more prepared and he'll be able to perform and to be able to execute much better than what he did the first time. So I'm excited for that. But here's the thing. Like I said, the next couple of series are going to be very exciting. You have 3 first-place matchups in a row. You have the Guardians, the Mariners, and the Dodgers. It's early on. I'm aware of that, but these are the best teams that we have to offer, and we have not seen a lot of good teams so far this year. It's exciting that our record is what it is. It's exciting that the Braves continue to be in first place. I need to see them face some better competition, some stiffer competition. I need to see the pitchers face better offenses, and I think we're about to get that. I'm very excited about it. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about the pitching staff right now. Let me know how you feel about it going forward, and of course, let me know just how you're feeling about the Atlanta Braves 2024 season thus far. And the other thing about it, when you look at what we have ahead, rumor on the street is that Ozzy Albies is coming back very soon. We saw David Fletcher got optioned earlier today. That indicates to me that it can only be one guy, and that's Ozzy Albies. So that will be a boost. If he doesn't come up immediately, he's coming up soon. They said 4 or 5 days ago that he was striding to come back early, so I think he's around the corner. Sean Murphy is around the corner. But I will say this, with all of the injuries, excluding Spencer Strider, with all of the injuries, there has not been a lot of drop-off. You look at Ozzy Albies, Luis Guillorme, David Fletcher have done a great job at handling the middle infield. They've done a great job at the plate so far. There hasn't been a ton of drop-off there. You look at Sean Murphy. I mean, Travis d'Arnaud hit 4 or 5 homers and 8 at-bats or something insane. I mean, we've had a good run here, and it unfortunately, it takes injuries to show you depth. But because we've had these injuries, we now see the depth of this team, at least when it comes to position players. You can argue, even with Spencer Strider's absence, that we're seeing some depth in the starting rotation with Bryce Elder, Darius Vines. Darius Vines didn't win the game he pitched, but I still think he showed a lot of what he could do, whether it's as a starter, whether it's out of the pen later in the year, whether it's as a spot start here and there. He showed what he's got. There's still more than that. You have A.J. Smith-Shawver. You have Dylan Dodd. If you want to go down to Double-A, you have Hurston Waldrop too. So I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be competing for that spot until Strider gets back. That all said, and this is going to cap off the pitching conversation, that all said, I still think the Braves very well may be actively looking for a starting pitcher come the trade deadline. We've talked about it on this channel a good bit. We've brought up the name Trevor Bauer. We did a whole video on that. If you want to see it, I suggest you go check out the video. We really went in depth there about that whole situation, not only with the Braves, but also any team in Major League Baseball that may want to pay league minimum for a former Cy Young Award winner in Trevor Bauer. So you can go check that out. But in terms of the trade market, I kind of looked at it the other day, what I thought it could be, and I will tell you this, I just don't think anything's open now. It's way too early to be talking about trading, and to be honest with you, even when we get to the trade deadline, I don't know how much availability there will be, because starting pitching comes at a premium. It always does. If you remember back in 2020, the Braves desperately needed a starting pitcher after Michael Soroka went down. They did not have anybody that was ready to go. The closest thing they had to a guy that was ready to go was probably Kyle Wright, and Kyle Wright got blown up by the Dodgers come the postseason, right, if you remember. So for me, I look at where we are right now. There's only a few teams that are completely out of it. I would say the White Sox are at that point. They were I mean, they have a terrible record right now. The Marlins are probably at that point. They have a terrible record. You could say the Rockies are at that point, but I don't know if, none of these teams are going to feel like they're at that point right now. But those are the teams that I've already circled come the trade deadline. We're going to look at and pick apart what they have. There's only a few guys that I even circle in there that we would really want as a frontline starter. Garrett Crochet has an ERA north of 5, but I'll take him because I know what he can do. Michael Soroka is a friendly face, but his ERA's 7.5 at the moment. Eric Fetty has been one that I've kind of circled and said, hey, there's a possibility later down the road. He's got an ERA of 3.10, but he's a free agent in 2026. That may be something that the White Sox would be okay with losing. I don't know. The Marlins have some arms. They always do, but I don't know that they're going to trade across the division. There's nobody in Colorado that I'm, destined to want or think we need. There's just not a ton of teams that I'm like, yeah, they're completely out of it, and therefore they'll trade a starting pitcher. Because here's the thing. Unless you have a starting pitcher that is a free agent at the end of the year, why would you trade them? Because the following year, they're still here. They can still perform. They can still give you innings. So it's tough to get a starting pitcher, but that conversation is certainly going to be had. And it's not because Ronaldo Lopez is not doing his job. It's not because Bryce Elder is not doing his job. It's not because anything like that. I think we're still solid with Max Fried leading the charge, Chris Sale behind him, Charlie Morton, and as of so far, Ronaldo Lopez and whoever may have that 5th spot. You can win the division with that rotation, all right? I think you can advance in the postseason with that rotation. Would you feel good about it? I don't know. I think you need another starter to really make a push. And if you're going for a World Series, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I think that's kind of where the Braves find themselves right now. Make no mistake, they're looking at the roster, and it's clear what the need is. It's a starting pitcher. It's a solid starting pitcher. Granted, the Braves have 3 that I feel really good about, and Fried, Chris Sale, and Charlie Morton. I feel good about those guys in the postseason any day of the week. Ronaldo Lopez, I have reason to question. Bryce Elder, I have reason to question. And anybody else in that list, I have reason to question. If they got one more, you're sealed. You're done. Plus, God forbid somebody else get hurt, right? Let's say Charlie Morton, you heard it. Let's say Charlie Morton was to get hurt all of a sudden. The Braves would really be up a creek, right? And I think that's the main reason they need to get a starting pitcher. So we'll see what happens. We're already cutting it close down Strider. I don't think we can take another one. But that's my take on the starting rotation. That's my take on the past couple of weeks. Let me know in the comment section down below. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we are changing the format of the show a bit. We do have a new presenting sponsor. Very happy to say that. GLYNN Smith Chevrolet, a GMC in Opelika. Really do appreciate those guys helping the show, sponsoring the show, and being here with us. They were kind enough to sponsor us, so we will be running commercials throughout the show now. There will be 2 to 3 commercial breaks. Don't want to scare you. That's all it is. Don't go anywhere in between them. Please do check those guys out at GLYNN Smith. And, of course, just be patient with us. We are still figuring out the format of how this show is going to go. But we are about to take our first commercial break. When we get back, we're going to talk about, number 1, how good Marcell Ozuna has been, and we're also going to talk about Travis d'Arnaud, and as well as all of the bench guys and just how well this offense has been. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Truckloads of fresh inventory are rolling into GLYNN Smith GMC in Opelika, like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 SLT, now available with up to $13,000 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT, discounted up to $9,750 off, and the GMC Acadia AT4 all-wheel drive, discounted up to $8,000 off. Enjoy no payments till the end of summer at GLYNN Smith GMC. Over 350 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way.
Get ready to smile.
It's truck season at GLYNN Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. Check out the powerful full-size and fully loaded Chevrolet Silverado LTZ, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or the roomy midsize 3-row SUV Chevy Traverse, discounted up to $6,750 off. And the perfect size Chevy Equinox up to $8,500 off. No payments until the end of summer. Over 350 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way.
Get ready to smile.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being with us again tonight. Really do appreciate you being here. I know you could be anywhere. I know the NFL draft is going on, so for those of you that tuned in tonight, really do appreciate it. But let's get into this. Marcell Ozuna has been playing out of his mind lately, and we have to talk about it. We can't go any longer without mentioning this. I mean, if you're talking about picking an MVP right now, so far this season, Marcell Ozuna is the clear winner. And it's too early to say that he's in the MVP race. It's just too early. But if he continues on this pace, it's going to be pretty darn undeniable. Right now, he's got a 344 average. That is 8th in all of Major League Baseball. He's 5th in the National League. He's got 9 homers. That is 2nd in all of Major League Baseball, only behind Mike Trout, 1st in the National League, and he also has 29 RBIs. That is leading all of Major League Baseball. And as exciting to watch as Marcell Ozuna is right now, we got to reflect a little bit on the past few years, because it wasn't that long ago when many of you, including myself, thought that the Braves were going to trade away Marcell Ozuna, or needed to trade away Marcell Ozuna, because he wasn't contributing anything on the field. And this, again, was not that long ago. We're talking 2021, 2022, when this was the common opinion among Braves country. So, back in 2021, we did sign Ozuna to a 4-year deal, if you remember, and this was coming off of the COVID season where he nearly won the COVID season Triple Crown. It was a 4-year, $65 million deal, although come that following year, he did not impress. He only played 48 games in 2021, and here's the thing, right? 213 average and 1067 OPS in 2020. 2021, he followed that with a 645 OPS and a 213 average. So he went from having a 338 average to a 213 and a 1067 OPS to a 645. Major drop-off. I think we all remember it well, right? 2022 was not much better. 226 average with a 687 OPS. He was healthy, though. He did end the season with 23 homers, but that's really all there was to it. He was either home run or nothing, is what a lot of people were pointing and saying, and I think that was clear, right? Then comes 2023, last year. Ozuna's average took a huge uptick. The entire Braves offense was on fire. They set a crazy records of, the team most homers ever, tied the Twins from 2019. His average, though, took a big uptick. It went from 226 to 276. And his home run number total went from 23 to 40. So he had a big uptick in offensive production, no doubt, last year. And to be honest with you, I would argue that Ozuna could have won the Silver Slugger over Bryce Harper for DH, arguably should have with 40 homers. But now we find ourselves in 2024. Ozuna has been on a tear. Again, 344 average, 9 homers. Major League Baseball's leading 29 RBIs. He looks a lot like he did in 2020, right? And here's the thing. A lot of people are asking this. A lot of people are saying their opinion on this already. Do I expect this to last? This 344 average and on this crazy pace? Yes and no. Here's what I mean by that. Number one, it would be a huge task for the home run pace to continue. If you haven't done the math yet, he's got 9 homers through 23 games. You do the basic, dividing. You all learned how to do that. If you do that, you find out that he is currently on pace to hit 63 homers. Yeah. Roger Maris, Babe Ruth, Aaron Judge level numbers here, right? And it's tough to expect that, especially considering there is the inevitable slump for most players. It's just tough to expect 63 homers. So do I expect this exact thing to continue? No. But that's how good he's been so far. And that's pretty impressive, right? And in large part, he's been a big factor as to why the Braves have been winning lately. Because you could say that the pitching staff hasn't necessarily been there all the time. You could say that some of the offense hasn't always been there. We've had some key guys, and that's great. But the question I have is what changed? What changed year to year for Marcell Ozuna, right? We always knew that he was a long ball threat because of, frankly, how violent his swing was and the power that he possesses. We all knew that he could hit a home run at any given time. But his problem was, if you watch any of his old, highlight reels or whatever, his problem was his pitch selection. Because how many of you remember watching Ozuna bat and just face palming every time he swung over a slider? He's not the only one that we've felt that way about before. I remember Austin Riley had the same problem when he was first coming up. We've seen a lot of this before. But the problem I have with it is he didn't have enough chances at a good pitch because he was chasing, and pitchers learned it. Why would they throw him anything in the zone if he's going to swing over a slider low and away, right? So his pitch selection got a lot better. In 2020, here's a few things that made Ozuna successful. His chase rate was down to 28.2%, right? It's an average one, right? When you have the power he does and you have an average chase rate, you're going to do pretty well. In 2022, this is the bad year, it was up to 33.4%. That's poor, according to Baseball Savant. But because in 2020 his chase rate was down, his whiff rate was down as well, which means his strikeout rate was down. His walk rate was up, right? That's the difference here. He's taking his walks. And I'll give you a perfect example. The first game we had in this series versus Miami that we just wrapped up, Ozuna walked and d'Arnaud followed, right? Ozuna has learned that he does not have to be the guy to hit the long ball. He does not have to be the guy that gets the big hit, right? If the pitch isn't there, take your walk. And I think we're seeing more of that now. And the fact that he knows that he doesn't have to carry this Braves offense makes the Braves offense work well. And there's a lot of components that makes the Braves offense what it is. I think one of the biggest is at the top of the order with Ronald Acuna, right? Not just the fact that he can take you deep, but he can also, if you let him on base, he's going to steal 2 bags, right? There is that possibility. The speed threat makes a difference, and it's something that doesn't get used a lot in today's game, right? If you've ever heard of the Ricky rally, right? The Ricky Henderson rally where he'd walk, steal 2 bases, and then get a sac fly. Acuna is that same level threat right now in today's game. Then you have your home run hitters and Riley and Olsen. You have Ozzy Albies, which can get on base. Jared Kelenic, who's playing out of his mind right now. The catchers, I think, are a big component of this, especially when both are healthy. We've seen what d'Arnaud can do. Sean Murphy is just as talented, if not more, than Travis d'Arnaud. And the fact that you have both of them on any given day, not only at the plate, but behind the plate, is a big factor. And it's a big factor in why the Braves offense works the way it does. So for me, Ozuna has figured out his role. That's the big thing here, right? Whether he wins an MVP this year or not, whether he wins a Silver Slugger this year or not, doesn't matter. He has figured out his role with the Braves, right? And when you say that, a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, Tyler, are you going to re-sign him next year? Would you re-sign him next year? Here's the thing. You don't have to re-sign him next year. He has a team option, right? So for me, I look at where we are right now, and I say Ozuna is playing, again, out of his mind. You have a team option next year. You don't have a ready-made DH anywhere else. Name a DH that's going to play better than what he's done lately. That's my question. Name one, because I can't find one anywhere. I'll take Ozuna over anybody right now. And this is a far cry for where we were a few years ago, right? Everybody was done with Ozuna. Everybody wanted him to pack his bags and leave. We all remember that. And here we are. The guy is, dealt with all the criticism, dealt with the boo birds, all of that. And we find ourselves in a much better situation. He finds himself to be in a much better situation. And I think we can all be happy for him on the off-field things. But beyond that, on the on-field things, he has performed. And the thing about it that really completes this, it really makes it come full circle. We always heard during the trying times of Marcell Ozuna, we always heard that he was a good teammate, right? We never saw it, but we always heard it. And we're starting to hear more of it now, right? Travis d'Arnaud, we mentioned him earlier, has had a phenomenal couple of weeks. He has played out of his mind. I've loved doing the highlight reels. If you don't follow me on Twitter, do that, because I post my highlight reels that I do at work all the time of the Braves games. So do follow me there, Twitter and Instagram. Here's the thing, though. I have really enjoyed doing the highlight reels because Travis d'Arnaud has again been playing out of his mind. It's 5 homers in the span of like 8 at-bats. I mean, you can't write that stuff. And of course, the story about his grandfather I thought was great. He did an interview on MLB Network and spoke about that. But he also spoke about one individual, and that was Marcell Ozuna. Marcell Ozuna, and I'm going to quote him. This is what Travis d'Arnaud had to say on MLB Network about Marcell Ozuna. He actually helped me 4 days ago when we were in Houston. Things are turning around for me, so he's a brilliant hitter. He understands how to hit, never tries to do too much, and he always has everybody's back. I am thankful that I am his teammate. You can't praise a guy much better than that. And if that doesn't tell you where Travis d'Arnaud is as to where he was, or if that doesn't tell you where Marcell Ozuna is as to where he was a few years ago, I don't know what does. But I am happy that Marcell Ozuna has not only turned his offense around, he has turned public perception around from undesirable to undeniable, and I absolutely love it. With that said, we're going to go to break real quick. When we get back, we're going to get to your comments, so make sure to get them in. Make sure you got all the questions you want to ask in. Remember, Super Chats do get priority, and they will get you first in line for any questions you have, and of course, they do also support the channel. So, again, get your comments in. We're going to answer when we get back.
Truckloads of fresh inventory are rolling into Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 SLT. Now available with up to $13,000 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT discounted up to $97.50 off. And the GMC Acadia AT4 all-wheel drive discounted up to $8,000 off. Enjoy no payments till the end of summer at Glenn Smith GMC. Over 350 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way.
Get ready to smile.
It's truck season at Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. Check out the powerful full-size and fully loaded Chevrolet Silverado LTZ, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or the roomy midsize 3-row SUV Chevy Traverse, discounted up to $6,750 off. And the perfect size Chevy Equinox up to $8,500 off. No payments until the end of summer. Over 350 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way.
Get ready to smile.
And welcome back. Again, what a run this has been for the Braves this past few weeks. 9-2 here recently since we last spoke. And again, what a time it's been. It's been a lot of fun to watch. It's been a lot of fun to talk about. We're going to get into your comments at this time. And again, please get them in. But we're going to start with Matthew, who says hello. Daniel Berry says hello. Hato Mato says, don't forget to like the video. I can't agree with him more. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck, and of course, with your Atlanta Braves. And we just got done airing a commercial for Glenn Smith Chevrolet. They are now our presenting sponsor. So if you like my content, you probably will like theirs. If you're in the market for a new car, go check out Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. The link is down below. Again, thank you all for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. And, man, what a run the Braves have been on here lately. Miguel, hey, Tyler, did you check William Contreras' statistics? The dude is killing the league. Why, Alex Anthopoulos? He's, of course, referring to William Contreras, who the Braves had a few years ago. A lot of you guys probably remember him. I actually was looking at the leaders across MLB today, and I believe he's third in batting average across Major League Baseball. The dude is killing the league. You're right. You're absolutely right. I hated to lose it, to be honest with you, but I kind of understood it, right? I mean, it stinks. You never want to, but it you know, to get anything, you kind of have to spend money, right? And unfortunately, we had to spend William Contreras, but he's had a great year so far. I wish him all the success in the world, and I look forward to watching him. You know, maybe one day we'll face him in the playoffs. Who knows? But you know, I know this: he definitely loved playing for the Atlanta Braves. That is for sure. Hato Monto says everyone in the lineup picks each other up, and one slumps, the next man stands. Let me read that again. Everyone in the lineup picks each other up. One slumps, the next man steps up. You're absolutely right. You know, we haven't seen, you know, the typical Olsen performance, right? We haven't seen the typical Austin Riley performance so far this year. There's other guys, but those are the two big ones that, you know, so far you're like, all right, you know, Acuna doesn't have a ton of homers. But what Acuna doesn't give you in homers, he gives you in speed on the base pass, and he gives you in base hits and that kind of thing. Riley and Olsen have been kind of quiet. They've been the guys that I've been kind of scratching my head with. I think they're going to figure it out. I'm not at all worried about it, but it is a little bit concerning. And you're right. Olsen and Riley, for a lot of other lineups, if they weren't performing, you'd be dead to rights. But with this lineup, the way it works, the way it's laid out, the way it's put together, I mean, there's not a hole really. Because even if Riley and Olsen aren't hitting that particularly well, they're still Austin Riley and still Matt Olson. So they may be getting the pitcher's toughest pitches on the day. But at some point, you got to face Orlando Arce. At some point, you got to face Marcell Ozuna, who we've seen. At some point, you got to face Travis d'Arnaud, Kelenic, Michael Harris, who had a walk-off the other night. How about that for him? Love that. Absolutely. But, the way I see it, the Braves lineup, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's Matt Olson. It doesn't matter if it's Austin Riley. It doesn't matter if it's, again, Michael Harris or Jared Kelenic walking it off, or even Luis Guillorme. All that matters is one of them does it. And so far, they've been very creative in the way they've been able to do it. But here's the other thing. This offense has not been shut out one time this year. We've had 23 games, not one shutout. I don't know how many teams in baseball can say that, but that there's something to be said for that. We've been competitive in just about every game. And with this offense, you always have a chance. Always. And never walk away from the game. You'll regret it. That's the way I feel about it, at least. Let's see. Jake Hobby says, hopefully Olsen gets back going and Riley gets going. There, the two I just mentioned, right? I think they will. I think, Olsen, I think, at this point is just a matter of finding his groove again. Riley, I think, it's just a matter of being consistent. And that's really all you can say. I think at some point they're going to get hot and it's going to be smooth sailing from that point on. They just happen to be having their slump early on in the year, right? It happens. Vision says, I said this on the last On Deck broadcast, and I'll say it again. I love me some Travis d'Arnaud, and he is the nicest guy in baseball. He is very friendly. I can attest to that. I will say this, Travis d'Arnaud, what a story, right? I mean, what a run these past couple of weeks. And I mentioned the story he told on MLB Network about his grandfather. If you haven't seen it, you ought to just go watch the interview because what I'm about to say is not going to do it justice. But his grandfather passed away, and the 3-homer game was actually on his grandfather's birthday, the first since he's passed away. And, his dad said something like, God, I need a sign. And that day, Travis d'Arnaud goes and hits 3 homers. So, a lot of people can identify with that. We've all lost somebody that, it would be special if that were to happen. So, I think that was great, and I'm very happy for d'Arnaud on that front. But on the team aspect, 3 homers in a game and then another one the night after, is pretty. It's a pretty cool sight. So, Travis d'Arnaud, there's not a better guy that it could have happened to, and like Hato Mato says, the Mets let him go, so just remember that. Vision also asks, Tyler, any thoughts on our upcoming series against the Guardians and how well they are playing? Well, when you look ahead, right, I mentioned this earlier, it's not just the Guardians. You have the Guardians, then you have the Mariners, and then you have the Dodgers. So the next few, week and a half or so is going to be tough billing for the Braves. And I'm excited about it because we're going to have a tough stretch at some point. So for me, I think ultimately better to get it out of the way and examine what our weaknesses are. Now, in terms of the Guardians and how well they're playing, they are playing well, and, that's great. I'd like to see how our offense does against their pitching staff, but more importantly, I really want to see how our pitching staff does against their offense. And not only them, but the Mariners and, of course, the Dodgers as well. The Dodgers we could very well see, come the postseason, before the World Series. We could see any of these teams in the postseason, whether it be in the World Series or on the other end of the bracket. So I think ultimately we're about to see some of the better baseball that this year has to offer. And, it may not come with a bunch of wins in the columns, right? I have confidence in the team, but it's stiff competition. It's good competition, right? The Dodgers are one of the highest payrolls in baseball, if not the highest payroll in baseball. I think ultimately it's It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to watch it. I hope Ronaldo Lopez strikes out Shohei Ohtani looking 4 times. But beyond that, I just want to see how he executes, right? Because that's really what we're looking for here. I want to see how Bryce Elder executes because I want to expose whatever weakness we have prior to the trade deadline. I believe our biggest weakness is the back end of our rotation. Now, is that the biggest, problem come the postseason? Some would argue no. I just think if you're going to improve anything at the trade deadline, it's going to be your starting pitching. I don't think the bullpen needs a lot of help. I certainly don't think the offense needs a lot of help. I think if you have anything to go for at the trade deadline, it's certainly starting pitching. Now, I mentioned earlier there's not a lot available right now, but again, you also want to explore your internal options. You want to see a couple of things. You want to see if there's a guy who could potentially take the mantle of starting pitcher for the rest of the year, but you also want to see, well, hey, is there a guy that we can showcase a little bit and we can trade for a starting pitcher, right? Because let's just take into consideration, I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet I made the other day. Let's just take Trevor Williams, for example. He's currently on the Nationals, and they're 10-11, but they could break at any point, right? You look at the Nationals right now. He's a free agent in 25, so he's a free agent this coming up year, just like Max Fried. He's got a 2.91 ERA, right? If nothing else, that's pretty solid, right? So far this season. It's a small sample size, though, and a lot of this can change. For perspective, I talked about Garrett Crochet earlier. He's got a 5.61 ERA. I don't think that's, necessarily reflective of the type of pitcher or the quality of pitcher he actually is. But there's only 3 teams that I've circled that are out of it at this point. Not even mathematically, just the eyeball test. You look at their records, it's not looking like they're coming back to win the division or even a wild card. That said, there's not a lot of teams that are out of it. And if you look at the teams that are kind of on the verge, you have the Cardinals, the Nationals, the Giants have a losing record, the Twins have a losing record, the Angels have a losing record, the A's, I think that's obvious. But a lot of these guys, they have years on their contract, so it's going to take something to get something, and you may have to trade away a Bryce Elder. You may have to trade away a Dylan Dodd or an A.J. Smith-Shawver. I hope not, but, to get something that's going to benefit you now, you're going to have to lose something that may benefit you in the future. That's the way trades typically operate. So, for me, I feel like the next 3 series are going to be a really good indication of where the Braves need to improve, right? And I'm not saying that they're going to go out and lose these series, but just pay attention to the games. Just watch the way they flow, right? Let's say in Game 2 against the Guardians, there's, let's say Game 3 against the Guardians, because I believe Bryce Elder would be pitching that game. Not sure, but I think whatever game Bryce Elder pitches, whatever game Ronaldo Lopez pitches, end all be all. Let's just say that happens, right? And let's say that, Bryce Elder gives up 3 runs, in 2 innings, and then he finds his way and gets back on and doesn't give up any more, right? That's a good sign, right? Yeah, they got to him, but he locked back in. But let's say they get to him and it doesn't get back locked in, right? That's going to tell you immediately, okay, Bryce Elder can get us through our series with the Nationals. He can get us through our series with, the Marlins. He can get us through the regular season. But he may not be a guy who we want to face the Phillies in the postseason, right? I think we can all agree with that. So it'll just be interesting to see. I'm excited to watch it. And, the way I view the next few weeks, the next few series, week and a half, I guess, this is probably one of our tougher stretches, and not because we're in a tight division race. I mean, we're only 2.5 games up on the Phillies right now, but not because of that. To be honest with you, I could care less about that. I'm more focused on how the team is going to be structurally, and I think this is going to be some tough competition, and it's a good thing. You want tough competition, especially early on in the season. Not too early, but early on in the season, right? You want to get some games under your belt that you feel like were competitive. And really, so far, I mean, the Marlins gave us a good run for our money in Game 3, but that series wasn't close, right? So far, the Braves really haven't had a lot of tough competition. I mentioned earlier that Ronaldo Lopez's 4 starts that he's had were against the White Sox, the Mets, the Astros, and the Marlins. The toughest competition there, you could argue, is the Mets, because the Astros, their record's not great either. They've had a lot of injuries and a tough start to their season. They could be on the verge of trading some folks away the rate we're going. So I am interested to see how these next 3 series go. I would like to know what you guys think about it. And, of course, please continue to support us here at On Deck. We're going to be here for a little while, as long as you guys keep the comments rolling in. We're going to be here. I know it's going to be a low attendance rate. I know the NFL draft is going on. I'm aware. But I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. I wanted to get on here because I knew the Braves weren't playing, and I thought this would be a good time to get on and talk to you guys in depth about where we stand as of right now, 23 games in. And I think so far it's been, it's been a good run. I think the Braves have been able to really, continue the success that they had last year. And, the way I see the season going is, in theory, you win the division. The Phillies are a tough competitor. Right now, we're 17-6. They're 16-10. They're 1 behind us in the win column, but they're 4 behind us in the loss column. That makes them 2.5 games back. The Mets do have a winning record, 13-11. They got off to a terrible start, though, early on this season. So it's going to be, pretty interesting to see where things go from here. But in terms of the series against the Guardians, I'm excited for it. I'm excited that the Guardians are first place and relevant again. I think they're a good franchise and a good team. I like the old name better, but we'll go with it. Hato Mato says rematch in '95. Yeah, absolutely. You never forget that. Never forget Dave Justice hitting a homer in Game 6 of the '95 World Series. To win it all. But Matty F. says the next 3 series will tell us what we are slacking on. Exactly. But the Braves usually do well against better teams for some reason. That's true, right? I mean, naturally you're going to show up for the tougher games, right? That's why, let's say Georgia's playing Austin Peay. Austin Peay is going to treat that game like it's the Super Bowl, right? So am I allowed to say that? I don't know. Anyway, they're going to treat that game like it's the biggest game of their life, right? So for me, I think that the Braves are obviously going to show up when it's the Dodgers. They're obviously going to try to show up when it's the Phillies. But all in all, I think ultimately we're going to see where we lack, right? And there are some areas where we lack, whether we know about them yet or not. I'm pretty sure that starting pitching is one. There may be some bullpen weaknesses. I don't know. I don't think there's any cracks in the foundation of our offense if everybody's healthy. And we'll see how that goes. And getting back, Ozzie Albies, getting back Sean Murphy is going to be big here soon. Ozzie Albies, I think, will be back tomorrow based on the fact that we've seen David Fletcher get optioned. I just have a feeling he's back tomorrow if it hasn't already been announced. But Sean Murphy may be a week away, but he's around the corner. So I think that's a good thing. And I think, when we get those guys back, we're only going to get better. We're only going to get more depth from that, and I think that's going to be a very good thing. Sports Daily says, still don't understand the Contreras trade. We don't need Murphy. Darno and Tromp are doing just fine. Well, we say that, but when Murphy comes up and throws 3 runners out consecutively, we're going to feel differently, right? I still think we improved with the addition of Sean Murphy. I hated to lose a guy like Contreras because, to me, I thought Contreras might re-sign forever. Maybe even do a team-friendly deal, i.e. Ozzie Albies, because I thought he loved the team that much, and I still think so. And I think he was a good talent. I really do. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. There's a lot of Braves media that thinks that as well. So I hated to lose him too. That's the one trade that I was like, ooh, that's tough, The only other one I could even compare it to would be like, it's really the same trade because we traded, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 3-way trade. We traded Pache and Langoliers for Murphy, if I'm not mistaken. And then we traded, no, that was for Olsen. And then we traded Contreras to the Brewers in a 3-way trade for Murphy. It's very complex. Anyway, that one hurt, but I got it at the time. We're paying Murphy, but we're not paying him that much because he's coming from Oakland. They saw something in Murphy. And look, Murphy's a supreme talent. You look at what he does for you behind the dish. You look at what he does in pitching staffs. The one thing Contreras did not have, he always had a bat, right? He was always able to be an offensive player. He really struggled behind the plate. He's gotten a world better since being with the Braves, but he really struggled with that, and I don't think the Braves were confident in him learning it quickly. You know, the Braves have one of the best when it comes to developing catchers in Sal Fasano, and I think, you know, maybe they weren't confident in it. Maybe they weren't confident in it enough to not do the Murphy trade, right? They may have thought, well, yeah, this kid's going to be good, but we can get Sean Murphy right now. We can win right now. And, you know, you can judge that opinion with hindsight based on what we know now, that he's playing out of his mind and Murphy's hurt, but it's tough to say that. When Murphy gets back, we'll see what happens. But, you know, let's just say Murphy had a year like Olson did last year. Murphy did not have a bad year, but I think we'd all feel a lot differently had Murphy come out of the gate and been similar to Olson. And maybe that'll be this year. You know, he's only going to be out another couple of weeks, if that. So I think there's a possibility that happens. I think there's a possibility that Murphy becomes more than what we ever expected to be. And I think really it was more of a we need to win now type of mode, because if I'm not mistaken, we got Murphy after 22, right? And if so, you know, I think it was look, we did not win the World Series again, and we need to do something to win the World Series. And I really think that's where the motivation came from. Jake Hobby says, I'm interested in Albies' documentary the Braves just uploaded. Hopefully he can come back and help right away. I've yet to watch it because they literally uploaded it the moment I went live, which thanks for, you know, interfering with my viewer base, Braves, but it's all right. No, I'm excited to watch it, and, you know, Ozzy Albies is a very interesting guy. He knows multiple languages. He comes from Curacao. You know, he met Andrew Jones when he was like 6 years old. If you've never seen the picture of them two together, you ought to go look at it. He's just a very interesting guy, and the fact that he's come to America, he's learned the language quickly, he's turned into this player, an underrated second baseman, and I don't care what anybody says. The fact that he wasn't in the top 20, give me a break. Give me whatever system you're using to calculate who's the best second baseman, you need to use another one. That was insane. So, yeah, I'm excited to see that documentary. Matty F. says, what's an NFL? Sounds boring. He's, of course, referring to the NFL draft. I'll go ahead and pull that up, let you know who the Falcons are getting. But, yeah, the NFL draft is going on tonight. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I know that's a big deal for some of you guys. I'm not the biggest NFL fan. I keep up with it to some degree. I play fantasy every year, but it's not my thing for sure. I'm more of I'm certainly more of a baseball guy, you know, than I am anything. And to be honest with you, when it comes to football, I'm much more of a college guy. So, you know, it's just not really my thing. But again, for those of you that are here tonight, really appreciate the dedication to the channel. I know you could be watching anything tonight. You chose to be watching this with us. So thank you again. And, of course, thank you for all your continued support. We really do appreciate it. Sports. Oh, they already answered that one. Let's see. Miguel, hey, Tyler, do you think that Snickers should move down Olson and Riley? They are rally killers. They're three players that are carrying Los Bravos, such as Travis, Ozuna, and Harry. I don't know a Harry. I'm trying to put together who that is. Anyway, I get your point. If you want to move down Olson and Riley, should we move them down? A lot of people said the same thing with Acuna a couple of years ago, right? Should we move Acuna out of the leadoff spot because he's a power hitter? I think when you mess with the lineup too much, it messes with the mojo, right? We were trying to put Olson in the 2-hole a couple of years ago because we wanted him to be Freddie. Let's just say what it is, right? And it didn't work. And then all of a sudden he moves to a 3-hole, and just like that, we're going back to where we needed to be. So I think ultimately time will tell. I don't think Snit's going to jump the gun and decide to shift the lineup all around just because a couple of guys are in a slump. And to be honest with you, we're doing pretty good right now. Even with the guys not performing that well, they'll come around. They'll be what they need to be. But, you know, if it goes on for an extended amount of time, you may see some changes. But I don't think we're there yet. That would be my answer. Shan Cox says Contreras will be a DH in 2 to 3 years. I could see that. I thought that, you know, when he got traded, to be honest with you. So I think I think ultimately with Contreras, it was more of a win now mode by the Braves. And for the Brewers, it was an opportunity for them to save some money on a catcher, and potential DH. It worked out. And again, we got Murphy, so I'll take that. Miguel Frica says the difference between Contreras and Murphy is that Contreras is a clutch hitter. Last season, Murphy was struggling in the playoffs. His defense is not good at all. Everybody was struggling in the playoffs offensively. Defensively, I don't remember anything that was super terrible. And I think ultimately Murphy hasn't had a lot of time to prove himself, which I know you're going to say, Tyler, he's had 2 years to prove himself. And I get that, but it took Olsen a year to open up and to be a part of the team and to be, here and to really make an impact. So for me, you got to give him more time, right? That's just my opinion. I think it's just too early to tell. Jake Hobby says college football over NFL, but it's slowly trying to become new NFL. I don't disagree with that. A lot of rule changes these days, NIL and everything else. By the way, if you're looking for a college football podcast, you ought to go check out my buddy Josh Pate. A lot of you guys might listen to him already. He does great work. He's everywhere. He was in Neyland Stadium earlier with his name on the board. For you Tennessee fans, for you Tennessee Volunteers. But he's everywhere. He's doing interviews with every head coach you can think of. He does great coverage. I actually got my start working on his show, which was a local product at the time, Late Kick with Josh Pate. So look up Late Kick with Josh Pate. You'll see what I mean. Dude does great work. And, if you need a college football podcast, whether it be in the season, out of the season, he is your guy, I assure you. He's also my guy when I need an interview for TV or whatever. That's who I call because that dude knows his stuff. And he actually is very well versed in Braves history too, and professional wrestling of all things. So go check him out. Josh Pate, the dude likes to jump trains and stuff. He's a nut, but you'll be glad I told you. So let's see. New Turbo says Contreras is a better hitter, but the Braves really needed a catcher who has elite defense, and he does not have that. Murphy does have that. I agree with you. Murphy has elite defense. Whether it shows up at all times or not is irrelevant, but he has elite defense. His pop time is nuts. His arm is nuts. His ability to work with pitchers is nuts. He can frame well. The dude's great. And with the new rules also, with the leadoff rule and everything else, you need a catcher that's got elite defense. And again, Murphy has that. Plus, for Murphy's sake, he got out of Oakland. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, really. Let's see. Did I miss anybody? Let's go ahead and say Matty F. I agree, but I don't think college ball will be the same as it used to be after a while. Baseball will always be America's sport. I don't care what anyone says. Well, you see my second bedroom. Look around, right? Like, I'm a baseball guy. That is my shtick, to say the least. And I thoroughly enjoy the game. I wish, like many of my alumni friends would say, baseball alumni friends would say, I wish they'd stop messing with it. To quote Doug Flynn, I would say that, the game's been pretty good for 150 years. Let's not mess with it too much, right? And I think we're getting to a point where, much like football, we're changing rules and we're changing a good thing. So I hope that we find that middle ground and we leave it alone for a while, because it's been rule change after rule change after rule change for some years. And I think we're really messing with the integrity of the game in a lot of ways. By the way, for you guys that are watching, most of you guys have probably already done it, but if you could go check out that Doug Flynn interview, it didn't get a lot of views, and I know it's not our typical content, I'm well aware, but the guy's talking about all things baseball. He's a former Gold Glover. He played on the 1975-76 Reds. Their Big Red Machine, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez. He backed up Joe Morgan and Dave Concepcion. You really ought to go listen to him. He's a very interesting guy, and he's got plenty of stories. He tells a great Pete Rose story, and I got a soft spot for Pete Rose. I think the dude belongs in the Hall of Fame. That is what it is, along with many others. I have a list that's probably too long for the Hall of Fame, but I'm a believer of including the guys who made a difference. And the fact that you don't have your hit king, the fact that you don't have the guy who does have the most homers, steroids or not. You don't have the guy that has the most MVPs, steroids or not. You don't have guys that you don't have guys that have 3,000 hits, steroids or not. You don't have a guy who has the most Cy Young awards, steroids or not. But specifically Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson's another one. Those guys to me belong in the Hall of Fame. Andrew Jones belongs in the Hall of Fame. Dale Murphy belongs in the Hall of Fame. I could do this all night long. I'll even say Don Mattingly. I think he deserves another look. There's a lot of guys that I think Dave Concepcion deserves to be looked at for the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of guys. Vada Pinson, I could keep going. But there's so many guys that deserve another look for the Hall of Fame that, I think I would just really appreciate it. To get back to my original point, please go check out that Doug Flynn interview. If you like baseball history and you like baseball conversation, that's a great one. And it's on the channel right now. Would really appreciate all you guys going to check that out. And again, thank you all for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Ron says, what's up, Tyler? When I watched Ronald hit, at first I thought his timing was a bit off, which I still think it is, but it also seems like he's letting pitches go that he would have smashed last year. Well, he's going to work on his swing throughout the year. The home runs don't concern me because here's the thing. The guy can be just as productive with a double as he can be with a homer. Yes, it might not knock in a run, but he can be a threat in any way, shape, or form. He's a 5-tool player. I think he's going to be fine. I'm not even really concerned with whether or not he's hitting homers. Those will come, right? Johnny Estrada told me a few years ago that home runs are happy accidents, right? This day and age, everybody expects the home run, right? And coming off an MVP season where he hit 40 of them, everybody is expecting home runs. But for me, I'm more of a look. If you're unable to get the homer, get a base hit. Because if Acuna gets a base hit, he's on second, he's on third like that, right? So I'm not ultimately concerned with the idea that he has to hit home runs. And I think a lot of people are kind of missing that. So for me, we can sit here and talk about it. I mean, I definitely want him to. I definitely want to see 40-70 again, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. New Turbo says, Ozuna is so hot right now, he would be perfect in the third or fourth spot in the order. But here's the thing. He's hot right now because of who he's batting behind in a lot of ways, right? He's giving protection to your slow guys, Austin Riley and Matt Olson. They may not be hot, but he's making people pitch to them, right? That's why he's in the spot he is. And the reason he's hot right now is because d'Arnaud's behind him, right? The reason d'Arnaud's hot is because there is no hole in the lineup, right? And you start moving people around, it may not work the same. So just keep that in mind. I agree with you. If you're building a lineup purely by paper, what's on the paper, I get it. But the way this team is operating, the way this team is structured, I really think the lineup is the way it needs to be. I mean, again, they are currently like 17-2, is that right? Yeah, 17-6 so far on the year. I mean, they're not playing bad. Could they be better? Sure. But that has time to, we have time to figure that out. The biggest concern to me is, again, your starting rotation. That to me is the biggest point. Now, can we solve that right now? No. We have to live with what we have until the trade deadline. But for right now, I think we have to figure out that before we have to worry about this offense. This offense will solve itself. I'm not worried about that. You can't mess up this offense by putting it in any different order, right? And you just can't. And I thought Kelenic would be in the 9-hole because that's where Arcia was last year. I thought he would be in the 7-hole because that's where Eddie Rosario was last year. I misspoke. But then they put him in the 9-hole. Then he shifted around a little bit. Things change, right? I don't think they're going to mess with the top of the order, though. I'd be very surprised. Not with Ozuna hitting the way he's hitting, not with d'Arnaud hitting the way he's hitting, and I think the other guys are going to carry the load, too, here pretty soon. Let's see. New Turbo. They should let Kelenic play every day like they did with Harris his first year. Let him get reps and keep getting better. I agree with you, but you have a guy named Adam Duvall who you're probably promising playing time to when you sign him. You're also paying him $3 million this year. And he also hit 20 homers last year. So that's the reason Kelenic's not playing every day. You do have an Adam Duvall who can be, everything that he was a couple of years ago. The dude's still good. So as much as you might want Kelenic to play every day, that's the whole benefit of having depth, right? That's what makes this team special in a lot of ways, because you have guys who are coming off a good year in Boston and Adam Duvall who hit 20 homers. last year in Boston, and he's willing to play half the time, just to be on the Braves again. And he's only taking $3 million. Is that how he wanted his free agency to go? No. But again, he chose to be with the Braves when he probably could have went elsewhere, taken the same pay and gotten full time, right? He decided to come to Atlanta because he thinks he can win a ring again. And you have to let him play too, because that dude's just as good as Kelenic, and he has more pop. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he hit a 2-run homer the other night. So, I mean, the team, again, you cannot mess up this lineup in a lot of ways, right? You put the typical lineup in, and then for Kelenic and Duvall, okay, is it a righty starting pitcher or a lefty starting pitcher? And you go with that, right? We saw the same thing with Pilar last year, and Eddie Rosario. It's the same thing. I don't have a problem with it at all. In terms of Michael Harris was called up because, we didn't really have another center fielder near as defensively talented as Harris, and Duvall's a Gold Glove level left fielder. Kelenic's a good fielder. They kind of even out to me. And you could argue that if anybody should get more playing time between Kelenic and Duvall, you could argue Duvall because of more pop and because he hits righties and lefties just as good on paper. So you could argue that. I tend to think that, I don't know any more than Brian Snitker knows, about this team. I just don't. I'm aware of that. And for me, I'm not one to see a lineup and say, well, what would I change about this? I'm more of, okay, well, why did he do it? Okay, well, that makes sense. I try to listen. I'm not one that challenges a decision made by a manager because, again, they know their team way better than I ever will, right? They have eyes on them every day. They know what makes them tick. They know what they need. They know that's why you don't see a lot of changes in the lineup, right? Because if you go to Olsen and say, hey, Olsen, do you want to be moved down in the lineup? I guarantee you he's going to say no, right? Same for Riley. So for me, should they make that decision? No. Are they making that decision? I doubt it. But that's my point. You have to keep some kind of consistency. The lineup should not look different every day, right? That's what has made the Braves so successful over the past few years, is that it is pretty standard, right? It's business as usual a lot of the time. So for me, that's what I like about it. But, I understand the people that, I wish the lineup was like this. I get it. But I agree with the way Snitker goes about it. Vision says Olsen has had a lot of hard hit balls lately. Yeah, he hit one the other night that was right at somebody. You're absolutely right. He's close. It's coming, and Austin will be all right. I know they've been taking a lot of extra BP lately. Yeah, I mean, look, guys, it comes and goes, right? The people go through slumps. It just so happens that they're both going through it at the same time, which stinks, right? You never want that, but it's just where we are at the moment. I hope that, ultimately, I hope that this doesn't last and we can, we can move on, and Acuna's blasting home runs along with Olsen and Riley. So, we'll see. Shan Cox says Kelenic and Duvall are a terrific platoon, lots better than last year's left field platoon. I agree, right? Kelenic has been way better than what anybody thought he was going to be in spring training, right? That goes to show that spring training means nothing in the grand scheme of things. So I think ultimately with where we are right now, we're in a good place, especially offensively. Like the fact that you have two of your major stars going through a slump, right? Their averages aren't even that bad, but they're going through a slump compared to what we expect. The fact that you have them going through that slump, and then at the same time, you're 17-6, you're leading the division, your offense is yet to be shut out, you're competitive in just about every game. I mean, that's not a bad go. I think we're doing just fine. The bottom of the order has been solid. Michael Harris has been solid. I think that, where we're at right now is a good place. One Ron says, I agree with you, Tyler. Heck, I'll take a 15-20 homer season for Ronald as long as he does what he does. I was just critiquing his at-bats with more of a coach's eye. That's it. Yeah, I mean, I don't deny his at-bats have not looked MVP level like they did last year, but it's early. I think, by midseason he's going to be back in form. You also got to remember when it comes to Ronald, he didn't have a complete spring training. And I'm not making excuses. He should have it figured out by now. I get all that. But he didn't have a complete spring training. He is still kind of finding finding where he is and finding, that kind of thing. Who knows? I don't want to say anything about his knee, but maybe that's a concern. I really think it's a more of a he's just getting accustomed to live pitching again in a lot of ways, and I think he's just trying. He's almost there, much like Matt Olson. I think they're both almost there. I know he was relieved when he finally hit that first homer, but everybody has good years, everybody has bad years. I just hope Acuna is able to stay consistent. He's got the talent to do 40-70 every year. Here's the thing: if Acuna gives you 20 homers and 50 stolen bases this year, he's still in the conversation for the MVP. I mean, he is, even if or 30 homers. I'll say 50 stolen bases, 30 homers. I don't think anybody's done that either, right? So, I think he's going to be just fine. Let's see. Let's see. Coolio, you are late to the party, my friend, if you're watching this late. But appreciate you tuning in. For all of you out there, I think we're going to wrap it up here in just a minute. Although I do have an announcement if this is true. Is this true? Is anybody watching the draft right now? What's going on? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yep. The Atlanta Falcons have just selected Michael Penix. Yeah, that just happened. Michael Penix to the Falcons. I know it's going to be controversial. I like Penix. I don't hate Penix at all. But very interesting decision. Very interesting decision. So Michael Penix to the Falcons, everybody, out of Washington. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. We'll see how it ages. I see Jake Hobby doesn't like it. We don't need a quarterback. I disagree, Jake. I watched a lot of those Falcons games last year. Desmond Ridder wasn't fooling anybody. I definitely think we needed a Falcon, or we needed a quarterback on the Falcons. Is Michael Penix the right choice? Maybe not, but I'll take it. I like the pick. I don't hate it, but I'm very positive in general, so take it with a grain of salt. But Michael Penix is indeed going to the Falcons, again, out of Washington. What a year they had last year. I think they made it to the Final Four, if I'm not mistaken. They made it to the playoffs, obviously, and advanced. That is, wow. Go Michael Penix. Yeah. I mean, I know we signed Cousins, but, we'll see. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it, but maybe they'll raise him up. I don't know. Maybe they're not confident, and maybe they're not confident in good old Kirk Cousins. I don't know. I would like some explanation for sure. Well, with that out of the way, guys, big announcement, but we're going to wrap up the show here when we get back. We're about to go to commercial break. Get your last comments in, because when we get back, we're going to close the show with them, and then we're going to get out of here. So, again, thank you for watching, and we'll be right back.
Truckloads of fresh inventory are rolling in to GLYNN Smith GMC in Opelika, like this powerful all-new GMC Sierra 1500 SLT. Now available with up to $13,000 off. Purchase the roomy GMC Terrain SLT, discounted up to $97.50 off. And the GMC Acadia AT4 all-wheel drive, discounted up to $8,000 off. Enjoy no payments till the end of summer at GLYNN Smith GMC. Over 350 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way.
Get ready to smile.
It's truck season at GLYNN Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. Check out the powerful full-size and fully loaded Chevrolet Silverado LTZ, discounted up to $13,000 off. Or the roomy midsize 3-row SUV Chevy Traverse, discounted up to $6,750 off. And the perfect size Chevy Equinox up to $8,500 off. No payments until the end of summer. Over 350 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way.
Get ready to smile.
Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We're going to close it out with that. Again, the Braves have been on an absolute tear these past couple of weeks, and without Spencer Strider, without Sean Murphy, without Ozzy Albies, It has been a crazy run these past few weeks, and really enjoyed it. But the next few weeks are going to be even crazier. The Braves have the first place Guardians, they have the first place Mariners, and then they have the first place Los Angeles Dodgers. It ought to be a lot of fun to watch, ought to be a lot of fun to analyze where the team is against some good competition. But all in all, I'm looking forward to it. I know you are too. If you'd like to follow along throughout the season with us, we got some announcements. Number one, first, if you haven't already, do like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notification. But also, here's the announcement: we're gonna change really the structure of this whole show. What you saw tonight is going to be reflective of where we will be, how we'll be doing things in the future. But beyond that, we are going to try our best to have a live show every Sunday, okay? Most of the time, it will be dependent on what time the Braves games are. The Braves play just about every Sunday this year, so if they play early in the day, every show will be at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, just like it was tonight. However, if they play at 7 p.m., we will instead lead into the game. So we will go live right around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll go live prior to the game. We'll talk for a while, and then, of course, we'll watch the game after. But that will be the structure of the show. So remember, most Sunday nights, we will be live at 8 p.m. So that is, of course, starting this Sunday night. We will be live at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on Braves on Deck. We will be recapping this series this weekend against the Guardians. I know we've been talking a lot about that. We'll be talking about what we were talking about earlier, about analyzing the team, finding the weaknesses, and talking about all we can about what's going on with your Atlanta Braves. So remember, every Sunday night, every Sunday period, we will be live here. We will also drop content out throughout the week. Either be pre-recorded videos or clip videos from the live streams, whatever it may be. But again, that's all right here at Braves on Deck. And again, we really do appreciate you tuning in tonight. Really, it does a world of wonder. But if you could, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Also, follow me on social media. The @ is right there. And of course, please do tell your friends about us. It really does help us out and get us to a broader audience. So with that said, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.
Tonight's broadcast was presented by GLYNN Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.